continuation of our discussion with Lisa on her journey with America's Journey for Justice. Yes. So we're going to continue that conversation and have a fuller explanation of that trip that you took. So go ahead, share with us.
Right, so we're starting from the beginning for a more full-length version. So America's Journey for Justice, this particular image is us marching at dawn. And I marched one day on August 9th in LaGrange, Georgia, into Hogansville, Georgia. And this journey started on August 1st, and it's continuing as a 40-day march until September 16th, with a few rally days in between. They're marching approximately 20 miles a day from Selma, Alabama to Washington, D.C. And the motto for the march is, "Our lives, our votes, our jobs, and our schools matter." And the NAACP put this march together. It's very grassroots pulled together for these topics: criminal justice reform, voters' rights restored, economic justice for all, education reform, and environmental justice. And so the various Christian churches are marching, Reform Judaism, many rabbis are marching, and so is the Sierra Club, and other people affiliated or not affiliated with faith communities are marching.
Okay, so much wider than just the NAACP.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is the route. So as you can see, it's pretty much through the South, and it's also commemorating the 50th anniversary of our Voting Rights Act.
Okay.
I had really no idea what was going on. I got this email from Congregations for a Better Bergen, Rabbi Joel Mosbacher from Mawa, a temple in Mawa. He, or a synagogue, I'm sorry. He asked Congregations for a Better Bergen, would anyone want to join him on this day? And I just felt really compelled to get engaged. So I looked it up and did some research on this and found very little information in the news. But Rabbi Joel said that he had very little information except that we might be sleeping on church pews along the way.
Yeah, great.
So I said to my husband, I'd really like to do this. He figured out a way to make it happen. And it was as Rabbi Joel said, take a leap of faith. So I packed my backpack with a few essentials, and we headed on a plane to Georgia. I was terrified the whole time. I was praying to God, please help me not have an ego, because I know I'm out of shape, and I know I'm going to have to take rests, and I know I'm going to have to pace myself, but I want to be there to be a witness and to learn. And I had read an article in the UMC News from a African-American woman saying, you know, that this is what they really need from white people at these rallies and such, as witnesses and support, and not to lead, not to take over the rally. So it was a conscious effort for me to remember that I am here in support, and I didn't want to hurt the rally in any way, or the march. So the first stop when we got to Atlanta and then drove to LaGrange was the first UMC of LaGrange.
So Methodist Church.
It felt like it was home, going home. God was saying, Lisa, it's going to be okay. And I walked in going, hi. And that evening we had a great discussion. It was the NAACP had local people coming and talk about economic injustices. And this was very important. This particular one was very important because they spoke about, they spoke about predatory loans that affect the elderly and the young, and people who aren't taught how to budget and they fall victim to these. They talked about how even people who are capable of getting through college and school having difficulty getting jobs because they're not plugged in to the networks. So they had programs to help people plug in through networks, just help introduce them to new companies and such. And then there was an engaging story about a woman who, she did get a great job, but she wasn't progressing and wasn't making friends. And they were saying, well, if you could just smile a little more, because she often talked like this. And she said, I can't. And they said, why not? And she had like really awful broken teeth. So they were able to get her some dental work done, and she has since done an amazing job. It just brought her back to life. So the message they were saying is there is no pat answer to resolve economic issues. Every person knows their roadblocks. It's helping that person find a solution to the roadblocks. At the night of the teach-in, the rabbis would transition the Torah. They were carrying the Torah, I think it was from Chicago or Detroit. It had started in Selma, and it's carrying it through the entire march. So that was pretty exciting to see the Torah and actually understand what they were doing with bringing God on the march. I will talk more about the Torah later. This is the list of the people who were speaking to us that evening. Then we drove back to the I'm sorry, I'm a little out of schedule. Things got messed up. We went back to LaGrange, to the college. It's a UMC college. And we slept on cots in the gymnasium, which was actually quite comfortable, but bright lights, so stay under a blanket. It was hard to sleep again, continuing my prayer, please help me, have the ability to be a witness and be supportive without causing any trouble, because I can't make a full walk. And so I spoke that night with this man. He is Middle Passage, and he is a disabled veteran from Colorado who has had 5 open heart surgeries, and he's marching the entire 860 miles.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and he is incredibly dedicated to this march. He's marching for all of these rights, but also for his family. He is married to a white woman in Colorado, and he wants to protect all of us. And his prayer, as I found in a local paper, is we're from all different walks of life, coming together for one common cause. We're walking together as a unit for the betterment and justice of everybody, regardless of race, creed, color, or religion. We're all in this together. And just an amazingly cool man who would march at the front of the march, carrying the American flag, waving and saying God bless as people were coming through. We got up at 5:30 in the morning to do the march and then had a quick breakfast. It was kind of hard to eat. I was, again, still very nervous about the march.
Well, you had reason to be nervous, didn't you? They did something on the bus right when you got on, or before you were even able to get on the bus.
Right. Well, they had Homeland Security, and the state and county and local police were there. And they had bomb-sniffing dogs search the buses and the vehicles to make sure that nothing happened in the night, which is at once a little disarming and at once gratifying, because they really were caring for us.
Yeah, reassuring that they're looking out for you, they want to protect you and make sure everything goes well on this.
Yeah,
so
the police were pretty amazing, and they were all pretty amazing people on this journey. This is Keisha Thomas. She is a woman that I met immediately the night we arrived in LaGrange, and then met her again during the walk and talked to her, and we've become pretty fast friends. She's actually collecting, I think, a lot of friends on this tour. She is a ball of energy. She has been involved in justice work most of her adult life, and she actually left her job in Houston to march the entire 860 miles of this march as well. People may remember reading and hearing about Keisha. Back in 1996, she was 18 years old and at a rally and a KKK member came into the rally, and the mob kind of turned on him, and there were shouts of, murder him, and she threw her body.
He was in amongst the people that were not the KK that was protesting. She was with the other.
She was with.
She was there with the other.
She was with
group.
African American. It was some sort of a rally at the time.
And a KK member was in amongst that group.
Yeah, he came in and started spouting stuff.
Okay, and that group sort of turned on him.
Okay. And she threw her body on him and turned back to the crowd and said, "We are not like this.
Yeah.
We will not be this. We do not do this. We're not of hate."
Mm-hmm.
And she saved his life. And she told me a few weeks later that a man came up to her in a coffee shop and said, "Thank you." And she said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, you saved my father's life." So she has since been dedicated to justice work. She was at Ferguson in support of the people there. She was in Baltimore in support of the people there. And her goal is to actually go on to Detroit and help start up small businesses to restore that city, which is, she's an
Huge
amazing woman.
Yeah.
An amazing woman.
That's wonderful.
So then this is the path that we took, the 20 miles in LaGrange, Georgia. We followed on a small rural road that follows the highway, and we marched 2 by 2, just pretty much from dawn until about 3:34 p.m., about 2 miles an hour in 98-degree temperatures and 98% humidity. It was heavy. The Torah was carried with us, and we each took turns holding the Torah, but mostly the rabbis did carry the Torah, and they were singing the Song of Moses in Hebrew and other psalms in Hebrew, and very joyful psalms. And I was singing to myself Siyamba because nobody else really knew the song, but I did, and that was the song I knew. I can't sing in Hebrew. This man is also an older man who's doing the full 860 miles, and he humbled me completely because I was only capable of doing 10 miles of the 20. I would march 3 miles and take 3-mile rest on the bus, and then march another 3 miles and rest to pace myself, because again, I didn't want to have any cause trouble by collapsing, but it also offered me time to talk to other people. This man never took a time off at all, and if you look closely, he's carrying a cane and an umbrella with his cane, and he has very old walking shoes, and that's an incredible dedication. He's an amazing person.
I imagine that's emblematic of the people that you were coming across. These are incredibly dedicated people.
Very dedicated. There are a few that I don't have listed here, like Royal, and just a few of them, and they were just incredibly welcoming and dedicated, and everyone shared stories as we walked and as we ate, together. When we got close to Hogansville, this was what we found. It was 2 men standing at the town line, which was a little disheartening. We were like, "Ooh, what's going on?"
Yeah.
It turned out they were the mayor and the city council chair. They walked the rest of the way into the center of town with us, waving to their constituents as I drove by, and just showing solidarity and telling us about the history of the town, how much they supported the march, and they were just really wonderful, wonderful people, and really shared. And again, made me feel good because they weren't always in the best of shape either. That guy was carrying a cane, so. We only had 1 negative or 2 negative people go by. For the most part, what we had were people in parking lots and cars waving and taking photos and cheering us on, and children in their yards.
That's got to make you feel good.
It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. It was a Sunday morning, and people were coming to and from church. And we were passing many churches, so that was a very beautiful affirmation for what we were doing. Like I said earlier, the police support was absolutely amazing. And they did take the time to talk to us and learn what we were talking about and what we were marching for. One Homeland Security man I talked to, he asked, "What is that chair we're carrying?" And I said,
okay, they had a bundle and it looked like a
and
chair.
he thought it was a chair wrapped in towels or a
Okay.
blanket. And I said, "No, that's the Torah."
Mhm.
And he said, "So what's the Torah?" And I said, "Well, you go to church, don't you?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, it's the first 5 books of our Bible.
Mhm.
It's the books of Moses, Genesis, Exodus,
Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy,
Yeah.
there are the 5 books.
Yeah." And he's like, "Really?" And I said, "Oh, yes." I said, the Jewish synagogues celebrate in very much the same way we celebrate. They have the same Old Testament, only it's their Bible. And they sing the same songs when we sing. If you ever go to a service, you'll hear the same music.
There are
It's
similarities.
their songs.
Yeah.
And I said, "But you know John?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "God is the Word. And the Word is marching with us. So God is with us."
Mhm.
And he was like, "Oh," like, because he was wondering why. Why were we carrying the Torah? Because God was with us.
Mhm.
It was a beautiful moment, and at one point the rabbis actually opened the Torah and read the 10 Commandments in Hebrew to the police so that they could see that it is one and the same. I got to hold the Torah.
Very good.
If my church can be anywhere, sure. We had, Muslims and Jews and Christians and non-faith people all working together
Mhm.
to bring water. The money that's donated to this march is to pay for the water and the snacks and the lunch and the food.
Mhm.
That night, we met at First UMC once again, and we had a panel on voters' rights. And this was very eye-opening for a lot of us because what it is about, it's not a Republican, Democrat, black versus white. It's about who's ever in power or wants power and how they keep power. And they've been eroding the Voters' Rights Act in very subtle legal ways. One of the professor at the end of that panel there, he is a professor at LaGrange, a UMC college, who spoke about a Marine had contacted him and said he heard a rumor that his votes weren't being counted. So he and a bunch of students did an investigation and found that local board of elections can, if they deem it a landslide election, throw out absentee ballots and not count them for cost savings.
Mhm.
So boxes of military absentee ballots were being thrown out because there's a military base nearby. And these people were on active duty and their votes weren't being counted. The students and the professor took it to the Board of Elections, who said there's nothing they can do about it, it's legal, it's part of cost savings. So they actually went to the local papers and the national papers, and the government found out about it, and they came back and sued the local Board of Elections and made sure that that doesn't happen anymore.
Okay.
Because these people are fighting for our voting rights. As the woman next to him who works with local voting rights groups said, we spent billions of dollars to assure voting rights for the Iraqis, and they use a thumbprint as their identification, and yet we're putting people through a lot of hoops and ladders to get identification to vote. In the South, in the rural areas, and probably up here, there's a few people who were never born in a hospital. And so they don't have birth certificates, and it's quite expensive and difficult to get a birth certificate for a 97-year-old farmer or man who might not have been born in a hospital. The white police officer who was there guarding us that night said that that was his father. Like, he needed to work to make sure that his father could vote this November. It's sort of a poll tax as well to have a $50 to $100 fee to get a photo ID, which is what it costs to get a passport or some forms of ID. Elderly used to have absentee votes automatically sent to them if they were in hospice care or home care, and those are now being stopped, that the elderly have to re-register for an absentee vote each election, which is just an encumbrance. It's making it harder. and they were talking about redistricting and how there's a district in Georgia that's quite large. It's all farms, and it has 9 voting precincts, and they wanted to save $10,000, reduce it to 1 voting precinct, which would mean a person would have to drive about 50 miles each way to vote. And on top, you couple that with the absentee ballots, and then how they time primaries differently, so that absentee ballots may not even arrive on time to be counted. There are many, many things that are happening in the voting area.
And it seems to me, at least around here, for us at times, sometimes a vote isn't settled with just one vote.
Right.
It might be 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 times that you have to vote on an issue before
Yes.
something happens, school election, something like
Yes,
that, right?
yeah.
So if you're saying somebody has to travel 40, 50 miles,
Yes.
not one time, but 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times,
Yes.
that might be such an incredible burden on that person that it just seems inconsistent. It seems like they're making it nearly impossible for a group of people to vote.
There are 9 states, most of them in the South and I think North Dakota, one of the Dakotas, that also have a double primary system, where if instead of the majority ruler wins the primary, like we have here in New Jersey, they have a runoff primary of the top 2. And that's because it's just another tricky way to keep people from actually getting the person they want elected. So the professor reminded us that our founding fathers could not vote for their parliamentary representation because they lived in America, and that was back in the UK or Britain at the time, and they was one of the reasons we fought for our own independence. It's something that's been a core American value all our lives. And they also reminded us that you have to vote locally, because the local elections are where your vote counts the most. The presidential elections have all of the glam. He used the football analogy of ground and pound. Like, you got to go forward and forward and forward a little bit on the ground. Although the big passes get all of the airplay.
That's what everybody wants, right? But really,
it's the small elections
victories,
that matter, and the small changes to policy that matter. So not to be discouraged, not to ever think your vote doesn't count.
And it's the sports analogy, the ground and pound, the runs over and over that gets you little increments. That's what frees up your game for the long
passes.
So these small incremental movements are what allows for some of these big leaps in freedoms and movement in our political systems to take place.
So it's voter apathy is one of our biggest dangers right now, because people are beginning to feel their vote doesn't matter, and it does, and it matters more so than ever. So if one of the big takeaways from learnings on this was that.
And if I could just interject for a moment here,
Sure.
One thing that I'm reading right now is about young people and their disengagement from the church. And one of the things that they are upset about is a church that is too political.
Right.
And I think this is interesting because you're not talking about a left or a right.
No.
You're talking about everybody. This is almost apolitical. This is about rights for everybody.
All of us.
Not
It doesn't
just
matter
one side or the other.
And that's the point that all of the panelists kept saying. It doesn't matter what you believe in. It matters that you have a voice for what you believe in. So
you take the
these
voice
rights,
away and you don't get movement.
Yeah, and there's that saying, and I can't quote it quite effectively. First they came for one, and they came for the other, and then there was no one left, and they came for me.
Yeah.
This is what is happening in the voting area in general, and it was hard because here we were, this incredible interfaith, interracial group of people, intergenerational group of people, working together, and there's no news coverage for this march. And I've been asking around. I asked a person I know very well who's in the broadcasting business, and it is a little bit of what bleeds leads. Controversy takes the main front end. This is not controversial. This is actually good. But there's a part of me that thinks that the people the people in charge also want us not talking with each other, and we need to break those boundaries and talk with each other and understand that differing opinions is good.
Yeah.
And debate and dialogue is good. That's part of the American value system.
Yeah.
And we need to be part of that.
Yeah, cooperation in the midst of disagreement.
In the
right?
midst
you
of
can have different
disagreement.
opinions and still come to consensus on good things that
Right.
move the whole country forward.
Right, and like Keisha models for us, you know, we don't have to be combative about it.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
like Middle Passage models for us, you know, it's a part of everything. He is there. He fought for that American value system. He put his life on the line for it, and is putting his life on the line to continue to protect us. You know, and Royal and all of these people, you know, these are incredible examples of faith in action. The Jewish motto for this march was praying with our feet, and that really is what we were doing, which was really amazing. So the march is continuing. We will actually be ending in, they're in Virginia now, on their way to DC. Michael and I will be joining up the march, driving down on the 13th and marching on the 14th. And then there's a rest day, and then we spend the day of the 16th meeting with our legislative representatives to talk about all these issues. So Senator Menendez, Senator Booker, and Scott Garrett, Congressman Scott Garrett. So that will be interesting, and hopefully we'll bring back some good stories. As we know, Cory Booker just recently had a thing on prison reform, and Bishop Schoelles was the panel moderator for that panel in Newark. So this is at the heart of the UMC as well. And it made me glad to have taken Disciple, to have studied the Old Testament, to be able to share and meet. And actually, I felt at times I was a bridge between people who didn't understand the relationship of the rabbis and us. And I'm so grateful to the rabbis for embracing me. And like I was their buddy. They took me under their wing. I really, truly was not a leader at all in this march. I was there as a support and a follower. On the way home, the rabbi and I were talking about, often there were prayers that said, there is no race. And the rabbis were a bit upset because it sort of felt, and I was upset too a little bit by it, because it did feel like it was a discounting of the beauty of God's diversity. So I asked one of the rabbis, I said, so what would your prayer be? And he started, and then we crafted together this really beautiful prayer. That is, God, you created us in your image in all our splendid diversity. We are blessed by your love for all of us. May we joyfully celebrate and protect all of your creation. Please give us the strength to end all oppression. And so that has been a prayer I've been sharing as much and often as I can with everybody.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing more of the story of America's journey for justice.
Yes.
And thank you for that, and thank you for watching.